Last week, my friend Jamie asked me to follow him around while filming him. Pretty bizarre request, right? I certainly thought so. I asked him what he wanted it for, and he told me some university project. So I guess the title of this post is a bit misleading. He did give me a reason. I just don't believe it. Because I go to the same school as him. We both study finance. I know what his schedule's like, and there's no chance that one of his courses had him doing something like that. He then clarified that it wasn't for a course, but for a club he joined a few weeks ago. I asked him which club. He told me it was the filmmaking club. I'd never heard of that club before, and I'd never seen it advertised anywhere around campus. Though I'd figured it did seem like the kind of thing that he might be into. He has a small YouTube channel where he goes around and films himself exploring creepy abandoned buildings. He says that it gives him the same kind of adrenaline he used to get from boxing before the concussions started piling up and he couldn't compete anymore. That it was a good replacement. But even with the additional context, I just couldn't find it in myself to believe what he was telling me. It's not that I had any reason to want to doubt him. It was more so that he didn't seem all too convinced of it himself. You ever get that feeling? When somebody's trying to sell you on a story, but their tone's all weird, and they're rushing and stumbling through their words. That's the vibe I was getting from him. But I just told myself that it wasn't a big deal. I'd just be a good friend and go along with it. He probably had his reasons for keeping the true purpose of it under wraps, and I wasn't the kind of guy to pry. So I told him I'd help him out. I then asked how long he wanted me to follow him around for. He told me an entire day, morning to night. At that point, I'd been under the assumption that he just needed me for a few hours. But an entire day? I had shit to do. But I guess he could sense my apprehension, so he offered to pay for drinks and the Uber the next time we were out, which I accepted. Realistically, I wasn't going to get anything done that day anyways. He told to wait outside of his dorm building the next morning around 10. He then handed me a small black device about the size of my thumb. Body camera, he'd explained. Wear a jacket and then clip it on near the center of your chest. Don't follow too close. He then gave me a brief rundown of his plans that day. He'd leave his dorm in the morning before walking all the way downtown, and then over to a public park on the other side of the city before going back downtown, and then back to the uni. I asked him if he was joking. He looked me dead in the eyes and told me he wasn't, that the project was a candid sort of thing, whatever the hell that meant. He then tacked on another bizarre request. He said that he wanted me to capture a 360 view of things. In other words, he didn't want me to be facing ahead the entire time. He wanted footage of all directions, all angles, but I didn't have to linger in any particular direction. Just a slow, passing shot was all right. So basically Jamie was asking me strap on a body cam and trail him at a distance for 8 to 10 hours while intermittently twirling around in a circle. I can't say that it sounded like a particularly good time, but as a painfully broke student, the prospect of getting shit-faced for free was enticing enough. So I went ahead with it. That morning I woke up and walked over to his dorm. I waited around near the edge of the parking lot until I saw him come out of the front entrance at around 10:05. Then I waited a bit longer before I started following him. I'd like to tell you that I noticed anything strange that day, but that just wouldn't be true, because nothing happened. It was just really boring, and by the end I was freezing and my legs were cooked. Of course, I still did my best to do what he'd asked, even if I'd felt a fucking weirdo every time I'd stop in the middle of a sidewalk and slowly rotate around. At around 9 p.m., he'd simply headed back to his dorm, disappeared inside. Shortly after, I'd received a text from him telling me to send over the footage whenever I had the chance, which I did once I was back in my room. He thanked me, told me to meet him at the nearby Iris pub after classes the next day. Of course, the entire thing had left me with more than a few questions, but I also wasn't really dying for any answers. I was too tired to really think about it, so I just went to bed. After classes that next day, I headed over to the pub. 5 o'clock, he told me. I waited until around 6. He never showed. Wasn't answering his phone either. I thought it was a dick move, but figured he could make it up to me some other time. So I just let it go for the moment, headed back home. It's been 5 days since then, and I haven't seen or heard from him. His phone's radio silent. He hasn't posted on Instagram. He hasn't been coming to classes. He isn't in his dorm. Or if he is in there, he's doing his damn best to hide. I've gone and asked the people on his floor whether they'd seen him recently. They all told me that they haven't, that they're worried about him. It seems like the last time anybody's seen him at all was the morning after the day I'd filmed him. I've also heard through the grapevine that his floor's RA has contacted Jamie's parents, told them it might be a good idea to file a missing persons report because nobody has a fucking clue where he is or where he could be, which means that within the next few days, I'm gonna have to talk to some cops. I mean, surely, right? I spent an entire day with somebody right before they went missing. Hell, I'm probably being actively investigated as a suspect. Right now, there's a question that I can't stop asking myself. Was it coincidence that he went missing the day after I'd filmed him? I suppose it's possible, at least statistically speaking, but the circumstances just seem too bizarre for me to believe it. It's been gnawing at me in a way that I really don't like, a way that evokes this primal sense of dread, as if I've inadvertently become involved in something that I really don't want to be involved in. Better to look for answers before I'm blindsided by an outcome I'm unprepared for. And I think combing through that footage might be a good place to start. They called her Long Lanor. According to legend, she got that name due to her torture at the hands of the townsfolk who accused her of witchcraft. Lanor was an unassuming woman who dabbled in medicine and recorded remedies she'd find using natural ailments found in the forest. Yet, the local deacon of the town's church accused her of communion with Satan himself. So, for the enlightened folks that they were, they put her on a rack. She stretched her legs and arms until she fessed up to her sin. Lanor, however, maintained her innocence even in her pain. In the end, the town made up its mind and decided she was a witch because of what happened to her body. They claimed that no human could have their limbs stretched so far without being ripped from the body. By the time she was beheaded, her limbs sagged behind her like limp rope. In the years since, townsfolk claimed that they had seen her walking through the woods, impossibly long limbs striding amongst the trees with a small body and a head floating above the stump where the axe severed the neck. It is said that if she finds you, she'd stretch your limbs until they're taut and snap off. Over the years, whenever a hunter or a lost person was found dead in the woods, folks would say, "Lanor got another one." The original town eventually became a ghost town due to the ever-expanding America, but the legend of Long Lanor remained. Locals who lived close to the woods where this folk tale allegedly happened sold shirts, posters, mugs, and many other pieces of merchandise. I won't tell you which state I went to, or what town we visited to ask for directions. We shouldn't have gone, and I prefer that none of y'all go out into the woods either. Our show was called What the Folk, and we go around state to state, county to county, asking and investigating folk tales and urban legends. It may have been a YouTube channel, but we took the show very seriously because we wanted to be taken seriously. We started in New York and worked our way down. Each season, we'd set up shop in a state and just spend the rest of the show going to each county to look into as many legends as we could. The Jersey Devil was our most viewed episode on YouTube, garnering a total of 679,000 views. There was Sarah, Duke, Aaron, and me. We were childhood friends, and we'd grown up watching shows like MTV's Fear, Ghost Hunters, Scariest Places on Earth, and Destination Truth. We loved the paranormal because it was so much fun to look into another world and believe in things that might be outlandish. You could tell someone the legend of the Jersey Devil, and they'd scoff. But if you put that same person in the woods in the middle of the night with nothing more than a flashlight and a camera, you bet your ass they'd believe. We were beginning season 4 and setting up shop in the next state we'd chosen. The hotel we were staying at was shabby but clean, and more than comfortable. It was November, and the days were growing shorter than usual, not to mention the cold, making it tough on Duke, who had metal pins in his wrist due to an accident when he was in middle school. "Why can't we take a hiatus again?" Duke asked. "The last season got the most views we've gotten in our entire time on YouTube." Aaron said, "We've got momentum." Duke just nodded in agreement and kept typing away on the computer. Sarah was the one who went out asking about urban legends. Sure, she could use the internet, but she preferred to ask people in person. Her reasoning being that anyone online could claim to be seen a UFO or ghost, but we live in cynical times, and anyone with a keyboard will say anything for attention and irony. But whenever you talk to someone in person, you can tell from just the way they speak that they're either lying or telling the truth. At this time, I was checking all of the equipment to check the sound, video, and lights for the show. I took pride in making sure that everything worked. Being the unofficial tech guy was a job I'd started to enjoy. I was halfway through checking the walkie-talkies when Sarah walked in with a big smile. I got our next story. Okay, shoot, Duke said as he lay back on one of the beds. Long Lanor. Aaron looked up from his laptop and asked, Can't say I've heard of that one. Sarah stood in the room, gesturing wildly as she told us the story. It's like she was in a pitch meeting, and we were the investors. In a way, it was because once we're on a project, we're stuck with it for days until we have enough footage to cobble together an episode. Duke spoke up after she finished. And you heard this from who exactly? She tossed a town brochure on the bed. It read, Welcome to ____________________________________________________________________________________________________________________home of Long Lanor the Witch. Duke looked it over as Sarah threw a beer koozie with a cartoon version of Lanor to Aaron and a shirt to me. I said, So we're in a tourist trap sort of town. Yes and no. I talked with a town historian, and she said that the original settlement where the story took place is in the backwoods of _____________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ Duke sat up. So there's an abandoned old town from the 1700s out there. That's exactly what I'm saying, Sarah added. Aaron chimed in. Dude, the production value alone of a creepy-ass village is gonna do numbers. You know how many times we investigated the woods, or an abandoned warehouse, or some boring-ass haunted room? This shit is potential. They turned to me for some sort of vindication, but I told them that wherever they went, I'd go. Right then and there, it was decided that the next big vid would be about Long Lanor, the witch. Sarah did more digging about the legend and tried to find the precise location of the original settlement that was in the area all those years back. And the guys and I were doing street stuff, asking locals about the legend of Long Lanor. Every person gave a concrete answer and a story to go with it. I saw Lanor walking in the trees when I went hunting. Lanor was peering at my window while I was sleeping. I live on the second floor of an apartment. I saw Lanor climbing a tree at night. She was dragging something up with her. That bitch Lanor killed my dog, Biscuit. Folks say that Lanor only comes out at night, but I swear I saw her looking at me from the side of the road. And many others. We rented a cheap off-roader, and I put our equipment into plastic containers. Our voice recorder, spirit box, EMF, cameras, spare batteries, flashlights, and so much other shit. Sarah returned to us with an alleged route to take us to where the site should be, and we waited for the sun to set. We drove out and went deep into the woods. It was freezing cold. We bundled up heavily, but the combination of cold winds and no windows in the off-roader made the November weather sting all the worse. For nearly an hour, we drove over twigs, dead leaves, and would occasionally get rocked by a stump hidden by moss. Duke stopped the vehicle as Sarah looked at the map. Aaron looked to me with an annoyed look and whispered, This episode is going to be a bust. I didn't say anything because I liked Sarah. She'd always been responsible for our best episodes, and she was like our rock of the group. Before I could say anything, Sarah spoke up. We should be close. You sure? Duke asked. Positive. We were running out of light, but we eventually came to a clearing as the sky turned a deep red with purple clouds streaking across the horizon. In the clearing was a dilapidated wooden palisade coated in moss. The front gate door was lying inside the palisade, and grass had overtaken everything except for the latch. We all stared in disbelief. There it was. The old town was still here. Overtaken by nature, sure, but still. No fucking way, Aaron whispered. Told you, Sarah said to him. Duke drove closer. The off-roader couldn't drive over the fallen gate, so we got out and began to set up shop. We lugged the stuff into town. walking over grass that was most likely once dirt roads. Even within the walls, the trees loomed over us, their dead limbs reaching out into the sky. We took the cameras and set them atop the perimeter of the walls surrounding the town, looking into the woods. The night vision worked like a charm because within a minute, we had footage of a herd of deer grazing in the distance, their eyes glowing in the night vision. We tested everything else, and all the equipment was in good working condition. We recorded a brief intro, got B-roll of the village, and then we just waited. It got dark quickly, and it somehow got colder. The moon hung over us, illuminating our surroundings. It was perfect for the show, but if we didn't get something recorded, it'd just be a pretty-looking filler episode. However, finding this little town in the woods was a pretty neat find on Sarah's part. I was on my laptop, monitoring the camera from within an abandoned church. Sarah, Aaron, and Duke walked the perimeter trying to get EVPs and provoke the spirit, so to speak. I never heard them speak until they'd say something into their walkie-talkies. I sat crisscrossed on the floor because I had forgotten to bring a fold-out table and chair for the setup. The wireless connection to the feed was strong. "Will," Aaron said, "will you be getting anything yet?" "Not yet," I said. "Late night shoots, especially in the cold, could be brutal." I may have been indoors, but it was musty, damp, and freezing. No amount of layers could really help. I lazily looked over the feed from the cameras, trying to fight sleep, until I saw what camera 4 was picking up. I was looking at a static shot of a tree lane for hours. It was the same image I saw when I first set it up. Then, what I had thought was a tree began to shift and move. From the tree lane, an enormous, thin creature emerged, its arms spread out, basking in the moonlight. But as I watched this thing stalking about, I realized that it was her. She was always here, watching us the entire time, waiting for us. Its body was small with gangly limbs, and a head floating above a torso. I couldn't get a clear look at its features from the grainy night vision footage, but her hair swirled about as if it were underwater. I picked up my walkie with a shaking hand and spoke. "Camera 4, I've got something." They radioed back. What do you see?" Sarah asked. "Heading there now," Duke said. "Wait," I screamed. "Just wait. I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at, but it's scaring me, man. The radio fizzled out, and then the feed of the camera died. I was left in the dark in the middle of a dark chapel. I tried to run outside, but that's when I heard Aaron scream out, "What the fuck is that?" Then they all started to scream. I wish I could tell you I was a hero and rushed out of the church to shout at Lanor, chasing her off or distracting her. But I'm not that kind of person. I sat, paralyzed in fear as I heard the screams grow louder. I heard snaps, gurgles, and wheezing last breaths. When you're in the middle of the forest, away from any noise of the city, you can hear things in perfect detail. When it stopped, I still didn't go out there. I knew it would come for me. A shadow overtook the empty church. I turned around to find that she was there at one of the shattered windows, his severed head peering in with a dull, milky eye. It was as if, after all this time, no matter what happened to this place, the church was still holy. She kept staring for what felt like an eternity until eventually it went away, letting the moonlight return to the room. I let out a little cry of relief when she left. I'm not afraid to admit. I wanted to leave, but I knew she'd be waiting. My best option was to wait until morning. I sat on the floor of that old church for hours. It's funny, I was fighting sleep, and now it was all I wanted. To my shock, the feed of the cameras returned. On camera 2, there was a huge bonfire. I saw my friends lying limp in the flames, their limbs stretched to the point where they were dislocated and hanging by loose skin, or completely ripped from the body entirely. Next to the fire was Lanor, dancing in the moonlight, he unnaturally stocky arms waving about with a smooth grace. Her hair wafted in the moonlight. She danced the entire night, until the flames died. When the sun came out, I returned to the off-roader and sped off. I don't care if I left the equipment behind. I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. The one thing I do wish I had brought with me was Sarah's map. I've been lost for 2 days now. The off-roader is out of gas, and I'm writing this from my phone. I called 911, but they've been unable to locate me. They occasionally call me to try and help, but I don't think I've got long. This morning, I saw her staring at me from a distance, her gray, callous skin blending in with the bark of the trees surrounding her. I think tonight will be my last. To Sarah, Duke, and Aaron, I'm so sorry. If anyone lives near Mason's Creek, please never go near the water. Jason's wife died 2 months ago. At the funeral, he was the saddest I've seen him. I was surprised when he asked about going on a kayaking trip. He said that he just needed a distraction and a breath of fresh air. He arrived early on Sunday morning. When I looked at him, his eyes were red like he hadn't slept for days. Are you ready to explore Mason's Creek today? I'm a little wary. You know what people say about that place. Come on, man, it's only stories. You worry too much. We barely talked through the ride. He wore an unnaturally wide grin. Sally always wanted to go to Mason's Creek, Jason mumbled. I doubt that was true. His wife was very superstitious. The legends of that place would scare her off. People would often drown in Mason's Creek, but their bodies would never surface. Folks around that area said that a demon lured men under the current and took their souls. The river was about 2 miles from the parking lot. The path to it was overgrown with tall grass and bushes on the sides. It seemed like no one had been here for a while. From afar, tall pine trees grew on the riverbank, towering about 100 feet, looking down at the stream beneath them. As we walked through the path, Jason told me he'd been dreaming of Sally since her funeral. It was a part of grief that I understood. The river was about 20 feet across. It was muddy, but very gentle. The weather was cloudy. A mild fog started setting in. It felt heavier than usual. I could feel it seeping into my skin. I heard a faint, soft, feminine laugh. Small islands overgrown with brush slowly emerged from the fog. At first, I saw shapes running through the twigs, but as we got closer, they disappeared. As we moved farther along, the fog grew denser. It was getting harder to see. The river had intensified. Small waves were rocking my kayak back and forth. The air had a strange odor of dirt and decay. I had to slow down, only seeing a silhouette of Jason until he completely disappeared into the fog. Then I heard strange sounds carried by the wind. They were soft and soothing, almost like a beautiful woman speaking. Sally, I heard Jason yell out. I stopped. The waves were slowly rocking my kayak forward. I heard the soft sound of someone speaking again. It was Jason's wife's voice. The paddles started trembling in my hands. I saw her body in the coffin. How could she be speaking to Jason now? Then his silhouette appeared. He was leaning over his kayak, looking down into the water, talking into it softly. He was hypnotized by whatever he saw beneath the water. I missed you, my love, Jason said. I miss you too. Come closer, my love, so I can kiss you again. He leaned over. Out of the water came the naked upper body of his wife. Her hair was long and golden, her skin smooth with no wrinkles. When she died, she was in her 70s. Now she looked like she was 20 again. She touched Jason's face and leaned in for a kiss. But as their lips met, her body changed. Her hands were now mostly bones with pieces of rotting flesh hanging on them. The hair was thin and gray, almost turning white. Her eyeballs swung loosely out of the eye socket, barely holding on by a single tendon. The air was now filled with the smell of rotting meat. The waves intensified. Jason tried to scream and pull away, but the thing started pulling him back. A shockwave ran through my body. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. The thing let out a blood-curdling scream as it dragged Jason's body underwater. Jason managed to resurface again. His hands were waving in panic. A look of pure terror and pain was in his eyes. I thought he screamed out my name. The thing resurfaced, taking him back under. Its body was flashing back and forth between the monster and his wife. Then only bubbles, and the river became calm again. Tears were rolling down my face. My only friend was lost. I wasn't consumed by fear as much as I was by sadness. Then the river started moving again. I heard the faint whisper coming through the fog. Left of my kayak, the face of my wife, whom I lost 10 years ago, appeared. I haven't seen her since the accident. She looked as gorgeous as the day I met her. She started saying how much she missed me, and how we could be back together if I just got off my kayak. I almost leaned over until I realized what these things did to Jason. I started paddling away. The current fought me. The fog intensified, and water was splashing into my face. I heard my wife's voice get closer. Then something grabbed onto my kayak and started pulling me back. I started paddling as hard as my body let me. Finally, I felt the grip relax, and I managed to get to the bank. As soon as I got out, the river went quiet and the air cleared. I ran back to the parking lot. Panting, I leaned on Jason's truck. There's a wet handprint on the truck. The fingers are too long to be human. The fog is rolling in again. Something wood is moving through the woods, and my wife's calling my name. She's not alone. I live in a tiny rural town. Population, about 345 people. The closest city is about a 30-minute drive down the interstate, right smack dab in the middle of a Texas nowhere, surrounded by red clay and mesquite trees. In the small town, cotton and milo farming are the norm if you are not raising animals with the school-agey program. The milo fields stretch across what you would call the outskirts of town, if you were kind enough to deem it big enough to have an outskirt. In those fields, it is common to see dead hogs. Those wild pigs are attracted to milo, and it being Texas, well, we are overrun with the damn things. It is not uncommon to observe farmers wait near a field and pop 10 or 13 hogs to scare them off. They always leave the bodies, though. The pigs, while inbred and off-putting, made great fertilizer once the natural order of things brought them back into the dirt. You couldn't eat them. So many people often try to poison them. At this point, it is just nuisance control. It was late October, and deer season had already opened earlier in the month. My dad and I shot pigs all year long to help the farmers in town, but deer were a rare treat. When we hunt, it is not malicious or for sport. Yes, the big impressive bucks are always nice, but more often than not, we just take one. We had one particular buck in mind this time. We found him through game cameras that we had set up on our property. He wasn't a huge deer antler-wise, but you could tell from his battle scars and blinded right eye he was the boss in these mesquite woods. We called him Uno for his one working eye. He was a nice, big-bodied 8-point buck. I'd age him about 5 to 6 years. My dad and I bought corn and spent hours figuring out where he bedded down his routes and his favorite patches to eat. We decided we were ready. We geared up for that evening, grabbing our compound bows, some knives, and one handgun, just for emergencies. Sometimes the pigs in our area tend to be aggressive. Many a time, a dumb boar who thought he was going to show us what's what has charged us. Once we got to the property at about 3:30, we parked the truck and walked in for the evening ahead. My dad took his place at the hunting stand near the water tank, a 3-legged metal stand with a chair about 8 feet off the ground, wedged perfectly between some tree branches for adequate cover. Little did I realize that would be the last time I saw my dad alive. Whoever sees Uno first, kid. He said jokingly, I know I got the deer last year, but don't get your hopes up. I smiled at him. Oh, yeah, he's gonna smell you from a mile away, you old fart. We hugged, and I started going further into the property to my hunting stand. Do you want the gun today, tough girl? The pigs might sniff you out. I gave him a thoughtful look and shook my head no thanks. I'm not sweet enough. We laughed as we parted ways. I had to write this. I had to let others know what happened. Not only that, but I haven't been hunting since. I'm so sorry, Dad. The property itself is about 100 acres of land. It isn't huge by any means, but it is about an hour and a half walk through all the brush and game trails. To get to town was another 45 minutes, and cell phone reception was non-existent, so calling for help was difficult, to say the least. I walked down the dirt game trail, taking in the crisp evening air. I stepped over twigs and small barrel cactus until I could climb into the stand. A sturdy 4-legged metal stand made for gun hunting. There I sat, and I realized something. I had not heard a single bird. I never saw a single rabbit or squirrel. It was complete silence. The only thing I could hear was the sound of wind lightly shaking the trees. Quiet days happened, sure, but this was different. Eerie, as if something was waiting on the other side of the fence line. As time went on, I noticed a smell creeping in. It was slow at first, barely noticeable. Musky and thick, like the smell of pig wallows after heavy rain. It was about 6 o'clock now, and it got too dark to hunt with my bow. I climbed out of the stand, trying to stay quiet. Something was off. The smell was undeniably strong now. It smelled old, though, like whatever was spreading. It wasn't even near me anymore. I felt unease build in my chest as I walked my way back to where my dad was at. As I drew closer, the dusk turned into night, and I pulled out my headlamp and turned it on. I could see the stand where Dad was, but he wasn't there. I was confused. He wouldn't just leave. If he was going somewhere, he would have told me. I looked around the area and saw something in the nearby brush. I crept my way towards it and looked at what it was. It was Uno. My dad got Uno. For a moment, a giant grin stretched across my face. But as I grabbed Uno's antlers to get him out of the brush and see his face, I immediately dropped him. His face was gone. Uno's face seemed to have been ripped off. Pieces of bone and muscle were broken and torn off. The blood was visible now. It covered the nearby smashed branches and leaves. Gigantic scratches covered his body, and its back leg was twisted at such an angle that it was definitely broken. Another thing came into my view, my old man's hunting backpack. Its contents were strewn all across the ground. Arrows, snack wrappers, and my dad's bow. I looked through it and found a handgun in its holster at the bottom of the bag. My heart was pounding in contrast to the utter silence that was the mesquite woods around me. Then I heard it, my dad's voice, but every cell in my body was telling me to run. Something was wrong, terribly wrong yet, I called out. "D-Dad, where are you?" I heard something move in the dark. The smell was stronger, and it sounded big and heavy. It permeated the air with a thick, putrid musk. Not only that, but it can only be compared to a wild boar. Upon that conclusion, I brought the gun out of its holster and readied it to fire. I heard it again, toward the mutilated body of Uno. A powerful shuffling noise, along with a now distorted version of my dad's voice. It was deep, guttural, scratchy, as if a skeleton could speak with gravel in its mouth. "Tough girl." Before I could process what happened, it threw something at me. I dodged it, and it rolled on the ground and hit the ladder of the hunting stand before stopping. Keeping my eyes toward Uno, I backed until I was at the ladder. I glanced down and just as quickly jumped away. I saw it for only a moment, but I saw the now disfigured head of my dad, a now bloody, chewed-up pulp. There was a roar that sounded like a pig in distress. So I ran. The smell lingered all the way to the pickup. I got the keys from my pocket and clambered into the truck. I threw my stuff into the back and put my key into the ignition. The truck roared to life, and the headlights unveiled a horror. Standing about 25 yards from the pickup was it. It stood at about 6 feet tall. It hunched its hulking frame over, and a wiry-haired body with muscles twisting in unnatural ways that one couldn't even think possible stood before me. Its head was pig-like but was uneven, as if they had broken it several times and healed wrong. Its crooked snout sniffed the air, and it made eye contact. The eyes reflected in the headlights, giving the already terrifying creature more to work with. "You son of a bitch," I yelled. Its shoulders started bouncing up and down. Snorting filled the air. It was laughing. It was fucking laughing. I put the truck into drive and floored it. The beast roared in surprise as I rammed into it as fast as I could. Running over it, I turned the truck into reverse and did it again before backing out the gate and onto the road. I sped home that night. The police were called by me. I did everything I could, but it changed nothing. They found what was left of his body and even brought his bow and packed back to me. I can't even explain what happened that night, but I know I didn't kill it. I know only because I can still hear the laughing sometimes. Please, never separate from your hunting partner. You never know what might come, and pay them a visit. So this is one of the stories my father used to tell me, which he experienced in real, according to him. Coming to the story, it was the night of 1992, rural India. My father and mother got married that day. All was eventful and as all marriages are, boring. The marriage and the after reception lasted till around 8 p.m. when guests started leaving. It was all over by 10, but they had one problem. The car they were supposed to go back in got seized and was not working. For content, the place where the marriage took place was around 35 kilometers away from home. Today the city, let's call it City of Ampla, is a pretty nice and developed city. But back in 1992 it was all jungle, less vehicles and narrow roads going through shallow jungles. Coming back, with no other option remaining, they decided to use a spare scooter which was available and started their journey back home at around 11:30 p.m. Bad idea, I know, but according to them, there was no bus station nearby back then, no cars and cabs, as it was a pretty rural area, so they started their journey. Around after 15 minutes, their rear tire was punctured. Thankfully, it was an old Vespa with a spare tire hanging on the backside of the scooter. My father replaced the tire and started the journey again. Again, after 15 minutes, the tire was punctured. With no spare tire left, they were stranded in the middle of the road at night. After a few minutes, another scooter was passing by, which stopped to help them. The other scooter guy gave them their spare tire and rode with them to the next tire repair shop, where they repaired both punctured wheels. All was well, and they both were riding together. After a while, there was a big bridge in front of them, with river flowing below it. While crossing the road, suddenly both tires of both of the scooter blasted away, and they almost fell into the river. There were no signs of any nails, robbery, or anything. The tires simply gave away again. Then they heard a scream of a lady like she is drowning in pain. They wanted to run, but there was no light, and honestly, nobody will have that strong willpower. It was terrific, but it wanted them to jump into the river. They almost did it, but the spell, or whatever it is, was broken by a commercial truck crossing the road. The truck stopped and the driver got down, confused. He asked them what they were doing, to which my parents and the stranger replied they had a blasted tire, but their scooters were in the middle of the road, and they were standing on the edge of the bridge. The truck driver knew what was happening. He towed their scooters on the back bed and gave them a lift till home. When everybody back home were relieved as they were worried, because it was almost 2 in the morning, they asked the truck driver what happened. He told them there was a lady who committed suicide on the bridge after her husband cheated on her. Since then, she targets newlyweds crossing the bridge at night. My parents almost died, but were found at the right time. This was the end, and afterwards nobody dared to travel on that road again, especially at night, until a new road was made. Few more deaths happened on that road, after which the old route was completely closed down and a new highway was made. The old route and the bridge is still visible from the new highway from far away, with nature taking back everything and leaving a haunted old road there. Morning. Tomorrow I will be sentenced for my crime. Tomorrow I will find out how many years I will be locked in a small room, probably with no chance of ever leaving it alive. They call me crazy and sick, but I had to do it. I had no choice. Otherwise she would have left me cold. This diabolical woman, my wife, for 10 years she had tried to get rid of me using the nastiest and most insidious methods. But I've done it now. She can't do anything to me anymore. It all started when I met her in 2014. I thought it was love at first sight when we met at a bakery. She stood in front of me, and it was over for me. She had enchanted me there. The first few years were harmless. I had repeated seizures, which were examined by doctors, but a cause was never found. We bought a house and got married. Since I turned out to be infertile, it didn't have to be that big. I worshiped my wife like a goddess. I did everything for her. If she wanted something, I jumped. However, I was always an obstacle to her. She made me feel that. 5 years ago, my health began to decline. I suffered from recurring stomach pains, seizures, hallucinations, and other symptoms. But no doctor found a cause for it. I doubted myself sometimes. The days went by and my wife made my coffee every day. buttered my sandwiches for work, and insisted that I drink my tea in the evening, which she always brewed fresh. I obeyed her like a dog that had been trained for years. She loved to throw away the money I earned. There was no time for friends and family, or I wasn't allowed to have it. She told me that my family was bad, and that my friends were just making fun of me. And well, I was enchanted by my love for her. That's why I obeyed. This went on until a little book changed my life. I had another one of those days where I felt absolutely miserable and had to call in sick at work. My wife, that witch, decided to leave me alone and went into town to satisfy her shopping urges. I was home alone. Then I noticed that my stomach cramps were getting worse again and went to the kitchen to see if there was anything wrong with it. I opened the cabinets and saw everything. Various dried mushrooms, plants, flowers, and all kinds of powders. I had no idea about it and didn't pay much attention to it. However, I discovered a small book in a drawer that made my blood run cold. I opened it, and it described how to subdue people through tricks and medicine, and also how to poison them. It was described down to the smallest detail, which plants have which effects, how doctors can't find anything. I was horrified and angry. My wife, she wanted to kill me. She wanted to get rid of me. I tried to calm myself down, but it was difficult. I thought about going to the police, but at that moment the door opened. She stood in front of me, completely horrified that I had discovered her secret. She ran towards me and hit me. I was so weakened by all the poison that I could barely defend myself. I tried to confront her, but she just laughed at me. I threatened her to go to the police. Then she laughed even louder and said that they wouldn't believe me anyway. She suddenly hit herself and said she would tell me that I hit her, and people would be more likely to believe her. I gave in, knowing I had no chance. She took the book and burned it in front of me. This destroyed all evidence. This woman had extreme power over me. I don't know how she did it, but I couldn't get away from her. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. The days went by, and every day she made me feel that she hated me deeply. She threw things at me, caused me pain, and with her mixture, she managed to make me absolutely defenseless. I noticed this coldness between us, and my hatred grew more and more. This woman was hell for me. She managed to stop me from going to work. When she had achieved this goal, she locked me in a basement room, without windows, without light. Just go to a dark, small room. Once a day she brought me tea and a meal. I started to come to terms with my life. I believed it would end in the next few days. She will achieve her goal, I thought. After 2 more days she came to me and asked if I had one last wish, because it was about to end here. I looked at her and felt my inner anger. I asked if we could go to the lake again, which was nearby. She agreed but insisted that I drive, as she didn't like that route. She let me out of my prison and we walked to the car. I had trouble holding the steering wheel because my strength was almost exhausted. 3/4 of the way there, I told her that I had to go to the gas station to get something to drink for both of us. It was a warm summer day, so she agreed. At that moment, I had a kind of short circuit. As we drove, I thought about what I could do to free myself, and I had an idea. When I got out, I grabbed a lighter from the driver's side. I went to the gas station, bought something to drink and a bottle for her. Back at the car, I put both bottles on the gas pump. Then I took the gas nozzle, pointed it at the passenger side and squeezed so that the gas shot out. I lit it with the lighter. I won't describe any further. It was very disturbing. Firefighters fought for hours to put out the fire. The gas station clerk overpowered me and handed me over to the police. They immediately arrested me and put me in custody. They claim you can see me laughing on camera, but I would remember that. I was scared. I just wanted to get rid of this, which before she got rid of me. A psychologist was called in. Any help came too late for my wife. I already knew the psychologist. He had been looking after me for many years. He tried to convince me that I was imagining everything. Same with my wife. He always talks about psychoses, about delusions. This man tried to take me to the clinic 2 or 3 times, but I successfully resisted. My wife had also told me to do that, and she never wanted anything good for me. They were definitely in cahoots. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I know what I've experienced. This woman was a witch. and the only way to eliminate a witch is fire. And it worked. My trial is tomorrow. They want to lock me up for life, followed by a stay in preventive detention in a closed psychiatric ward. They say I imagined everything. No mushrooms, no medicines, no powders were found in our house. But my wife or this psychologist disposed of them. I can't explain it any other way. They were definitely in cahoots. Nobody believes me in the book either. A friend of my wife said that she had never seen any substances or such a book while we were cooking together. She claimed that my wife only had an old herbalism book that had symptoms of poisoning on some plants. She must also be involved in this conspiracy. Now I'm sitting here in front of the prison psychologist's office, and you also seem to be sitting here because you did something. Or are you innocent too? Did you also have an intrigue? I'm not crazy. I didn't imagine it all. Apparently my symptoms were figments of my imagination, so no doctor could find anything. At least that's what they claim. Every night when I sleep I hear these screams from my wife. How she asks me why I do this. I should save her. I should let her out of the car. But no. I held the door shut with my foot so she wouldn't come out. Her screams still ring in my ears, and I have to say they sound good. My family also turned away from me. They now claim that it wasn't my wife's fault, but my behavior. They are definitely in on the conspiracy too. If I'm locked away forever tomorrow, I hope you'll tell my story. That everyone knows that I didn't do anything bad. I just offended myself. I'm not crazy, even if everyone says so. I know exactly what I experienced. I can't have imagined it all, can I? Please do me this favor, because I don't think I'll ever experience freedom again. We weren't supposed to stop. That's the first rule of the mountains after dark. You drive. You reach your hotel. You go inside. You don't tempt the night. But the road out of Hill City has a way of confusing you. My wife Romana, her sister Alicia, Alicia's husband Zayden, and I were together. We'd taken a wrong turn after the main market, lured by a sign pointing to a scenic view. The road became a narrow, crumbling track carved into the mountainside. On one side, wet rock. On the other, nothing but a black drop into the valley below. The hotel, when we found it, looked like it had grown straight out of the cliff. It was called the Pineview Lodge, but there wasn't a pine in sight. It was all dark, oiled wood, walls, floors, ceilings, the porch. It creaked. Not a normal settling sound, but a loud, human-sounding groan with every step, as if the whole building was sighing under our weight. Our room was at the very end, hanging directly over the roaring river. The wooden balcony felt like it was floating in the cold mist. The manager who checked us was a man named Mr. D'Souza. He was a puzzle. In a wooden lodge where everyone else wore simple woolen boots, he was in a full, old-fashioned three-piece suit, slightly too large for his thin frame. His smile was wide and sudden, showing all his teeth, but it never touched his eyes. When Romana nudged me with her elbow and whispered, "Why is he smiling like we just told a joke?" I looked, and the smile vanished. His face became a mask of solemn duty, as if the smile had never existed. It was unsettling. That night, after a quiet dinner in the echoing dining hall, the power died completely. The kind of thick, breathing darkness that sits on your chest. We lit the kerosene lantern provided in the room. With nothing else to do, we started talking. And talk in the dark always turns to shadows and stories. Zayden told one. Romana told another. The lantern light threw our giant, dancing shadows on the wooden walls. Outside, the river was a constant, angry roar. I needed to break the heaviness. I went out to the balcony. The world was shades of deep blue and black. The mountain across from us was a giant silhouette against the stars. I lit a cigarette. The tip glowed like a single watchful eye. That's when I saw the lights. A slow, steady chain of them, coming down the steep face of the opposite mountain. Tiny, bobbing points of amber light. "Look at this," I said, calling the others out. Romana, Alicia, and Zayden crowded onto the creaky balcony. "Probably villagers," I said, trying to sound sure. "Or shepherds with lanterns." Zayden, who grew up in a hill town, shook his head. His voice was low. "No, villagers sleep when the sun sets. They wake before it rises. They are not hiking down a cliff at midnight. He paused. Unless it's a festival. A ritual only they know. But it didn't feel like a festival. There was no sound of drums, no singing. Just this silent, snaking line of light descending with terrible patience. As they got closer to the riverbank, the truth started to choke me. They weren't holding the lights. They were the light. Each figure was a walking outline of a person, made of a deep, pulsing orange flame. There was no smoke, no torch in a hand. They were hollow shapes of pure fire, moving in unison. The light didn't touch the rocks or trees around them. It just burned within their forms, making them glow like terrible lanterns against a pitch-black mountain. Romana's hand clamped onto my arm. Alicia made a small, trapped sound. None of us could speak. The line reached the raging river. The first fire being didn't slow. It stepped directly into the violent, icy water. Thup! The light went out. Not drowned, but erased. Instant, absolute dark. Then the next one stepped in. Thup! Gone. Then the next. Thup! One by one, all 10 or 12 of them walked into the churning river and were swallowed without a splash, without a cry. Only the river's roar remained. We stood paralyzed on the groaning balcony, staring at the empty, dark bank. Then, from directly below us, a calm voice. "You are observing the procession." We all flinched. Leaning over the wooden rail, I saw Mr. D'Souza. He stood perfectly still in the small garden, looking up at us, his face serious in the moonlight. There was no trace of his earlier, fake smile. What are they?" Zidane asked, his voice rough. Mr. D'Souza didn't blink. "The permanent guests. This is their nightly path. They descend. They purify themselves in the river. They ascend." He said it like he was explaining the checkout time. "But where do they go?" Romana whispered. The manager slowly raised a thin hand. He didn't point at the river, but at the distant, jagged peak of the next mountain over. There, they emerge. Their climb begins anew. We followed his gaze, and on that faraway peak we saw it. A new line of tiny, amber lights had appeared. They were already moving, beginning their slow, impossible trek upwards. The same ones. Alicia breathed, her face pale. Mr. D'Souza offered that wide, empty smile again for just a second. Then it was gone, replaced by blank seriousness. It is not for us to know. They belong to the mountain. We are merely custodians of the view. With a stiff nod, he turned and walked silently back towards the main lodge, his formal suit making him look like a ghost from another century. We didn't sleep. We stayed on that creaking balcony until the sky turned gray, watching the distant line of fire walkers until the last one disappeared over the ridge. We heard nothing from them. No footsteps, no voices. Just the endless scream of the river and the deep, wooden groans of the hotel, which now sounded like the mountain itself was aching. We left as the sun rose. We didn't speak about it in the car. Some sights are like a key that locks away your words. You just carry the memory of the silent fire, the creaking wood, and the manager with his sudden, joyless smiles. And you know, with a cold certainty, that you will never, ever take the scenic route out of Hill City again. On July 24th, 2025, a post was written on Reddit by a user with the nickname Unknown097 in a horror stories forum. This happened during my school days. In the 6th grade, our parents pooled money for a camping trip, and our homeroom teacher decided to organize it together with her husband. We lived in a small town at the time, so getting to the woods wasn't a big deal. Our parents wanted us to get to know nature. Half of them, according to their own stories, used to have to be dragged back home by their parents when they were kids. But we liked it too. We'd go anywhere just to skip classes. Then Friday came, the day we decided to go camping. Everyone showed up except for 2 kids. They were often sick. Maybe they had allergies. We gathered outside the school, where our teacher and her husband were waiting. They gave us 30 minutes to buy some last-minute things. Some of us went, including me, while others stayed. Even though my parents had packed well for me, I wanted to buy something sweet. After 15 minutes, everyone was back, and they led us into the forest. We decided to stay the night, and every single one of us had brought a tent. After about 30 minutes of walking, we reached the woods and started looking for a clearing to set up camp. You can't really pitch tents deep in the forest where everyone can see each other, but a clearing is perfect. The woods are right there, and you have a clear view. We found a clearing and set up our tents. Everyone slept separately, even though most of us wouldn't have minded sharing, but our parents had all bought one-person tents. We had a really good evening. We picked berries, explored the woods. Some even went fishing and swimming in the lake. When it got dark, everyone went to sleep. Sometime around midnight, I woke up needing to take a leak. After I was done, I saw a bear prowling around the tents. The bear was huge, drool dripping from its teeth, its eyes gleaming with a predatory light. It was hungry. I didn't know what to do. I had never seen a bear in real life, and this big, shaggy thing was right next to the other kids. I didn't know what to do. If I started screaming, everyone would wake up, and it would kill them all. If I did nothing, it might kill someone. I stumbled on a piece of meat that had been dropped while we were roasting shashlik earlier and decided to throw it far away from the tents. The bear immediately went for the meat, but I knew I had only distracted it for a few seconds. And at that very moment, a classmate woke up, and when she saw the bear, she screamed so loudly that she woke everyone up. The bear, startled, lunged at her. It mauled her terribly, and it was agonizing to watch. Everyone was screaming and running. The bear started switching to others. It definitely killed 2 of them. I ran. I know it was an immoral thing to do, but if you were in my place, would you have acted differently? So I ran. The forest felt like an eternity. I have a poor sense of direction, and on top of that, it was pitch black. While running, I accidentally stumbled into a house. I don't know how I found it. I was just walking blindly and bumped into it. I guess I was lucky in the worst possible way. I barricaded myself inside, and as I started looking around, I found a flashlight. I turned it on and saw countless satanic pentagrams, and I realized I had wandered into cult territory. I took the flashlight and some food and got out of that house. I prayed to God I wouldn't run into the cultists. I didn't meet them, but I met something no one would believe me about. Everything grew darker and darker, as if I was entering another world. And during all this, I heard a scream. I ran toward the sound and saw a tall, human-like creature using its long claws to skin a person alive. I was terrified and dropped the flashlight. The creature sharply turned its head halfway toward me and smiled. Its eyes were empty, and the smile looked painted on. It waved at me. I grabbed the flashlight and started running. The creature gave chase. When I collapsed from exhaustion, I cried and prayed to God it wouldn't find me. Thank God I fell into some bushes. And what do you know? That's right. It didn't find me, but I could see it walking around, as if this was all a game to it. But the safety didn't last. The creature found me. It started rummaging through the bushes where it had last seen me, and eventually, it got to me. The whole time it was searching, its bones creaked, and it let out groans, as if it was tired. As it searched, I noticed the deformities of its body, rib bones protruding out. They stuck out like branches, and strangely, these ribs didn't seem to hinder its running, though it ran slowly. Maybe its body explains that. When it pulled me out of the bushes, instead of killing me painfully, it decided to torture me in another way. But before that, I noticed gills on its neck that were profusely bleeding. I thought it was suffocating, but it kept moving. It dragged me into a cave and kept bringing animals, skinning them, dismembering them, and eating them right in front of me. All sorts of animals, from squirrels to a wolf. It laughed at me, seeming amused at how it was breaking me inside. Then it brought a lost mushroom picker and skinned him. Then it took out his organs and even hung his intestines around my neck like a necklace. I couldn't move or scream from fear. I just cried and prayed that this wouldn't happen to me. And the whole time, its bleeding gills added to the horror. The blood wasn't normal, it was green. The whole time, I felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. It was so unbearable to witness in person that I wanted to hang myself with those intestines around my neck. And it started rubbing its head against my shoulder. Maybe it was showing affection, or maybe it was marking me as its territory. I don't know. Its skeleton vibrated and made a disgusting sound, faintly reminiscent of laughter. Maybe it was laughing, rejoicing, or maybe crying. And when it lifted its head, a black liquid seeped from its black, empty eyes. It didn't roll down its face, but gathered around the pupils, and these oily drops fell onto my jacket. Maybe the creature was crying, or maybe this was also its way of marking me as territory. After all, it had no genitals. Maybe these eyes were its only way to mark me? In the morning, the creature went deeper into the cave. It didn't take me with it. It just left, as if I had stopped being interesting. I barely managed to get out of the forest. I just remembered the lesson from that survival skills class about following a river to find a path. I, of course, threw the intestines back into the cave and washed myself in the river. When I finally got out of the forest, the police didn't ask many questions. My parents understood that I had survived a bear attack and sent me to a psychologist. But neither my parents nor the psychologist know what I experienced beyond the bear. The psychologist diagnosed me with PTSD from the bear attack. I now sleep with the light on every night, afraid of losing control of the situation. When I shower, I try to wash off invisible blood. Only on the internet can I talk about what really happened to me. After all, most people would think this is just a scary story. Update September 8th. 25 turns out. The house belonged to a forest ranger who disappeared 12 years ago, and it was taken over by cultists. They didn't bother people. They just performed rituals similar to those of people who believe in the power of nature. And in those woods in the 1970s, they found victims. They had that same smile as this creature, and they were killed just as brutally as the man the creature skinned in front of me. I've moved away from there and am now in another city. I can't say which one to keep my information confidential. Update August 13th. 25 guys. I wanted to clarify something. Maybe you can tell me. Could this creature be from another world? Maybe from hell or outer space? I mean, those protruding rib bones and bleeding gills on its neck. But a creature can't possibly live like that, especially losing that much blood. Update August 14th. 25 since I've already been so open. I'll confess something else. Every night I wake up feeling like someone is watching. I go to the window and see those same eyes and that painted-on smile. But one thought won't leave me alone. It's laughter. It was mocking me. But maybe it was laughter like a child showing its mother a drawing? Maybe the creature was trying to befriend me? Like a cat bringing a dead bird, showing its devotion. Maybe with those animals and the mushroom picker. It was trying to show that it's an adult who can hunt. And it put the intestines on me to say, "Look, this is a gift for you." And this thought haunts me. Maybe it was tormenting me, or maybe it was trying to make friends. After all, it didn't kill me. But why did it kill that man and the forest ranger, yet left me alive? Maybe it's a creature that accidentally ended up in our world, or maybe it's the devil in the flesh, and this was its way of killing me from the inside. Maybe it's still waiting for me, or maybe it's forgotten. Maybe it's looking for me because to it, I've become like a friend or a toy that can be broken completely. Update August 15th. 25 guys. I forgot to tell you. The marks it left on me. 2 of them seeped into my skin and left 2 permanent spots. They look like patches of tanned skin. I try to get rid of them, but now they're with me forever, and they show that I belong only to it. I'm not looking for a girlfriend, and it feels like this creature is only interested in me. Update September 23rd. 25 This is his mother writing. The author of this post has hanged himself. I don't know for sure if my son was really writing about this monster, or maybe after the bear attack, the rest of these memories became a kind of fear. But thank you for supporting my son. This is an irreparable loss for us, as he was our only child. He was 25 and never really recovered from that incident. May God rest his soul in a better world. Amen. Wilted flower, wilted flower. Update September 26th. 25 This is his friend writing. I know he was running this page, and now this task has been passed to me. I have to tell you something strange. Someone has been leaving mutilated animal corpses by his grave. The cemetery guard says it's a pale creature, but the town thinks he's just a drunk. Everyone thinks it's the cultists or some teenagers, but I've seen the records my friend kept, and maybe that guard is actually right. Now, every day there are animal corpses by the grave, and a circle is drawn on the gravestone with eyes and a smiley face inside it, like an emoji. I'll write here first thing if I find out more. Anyway, good luck to you all.